John Lennon gave the attackers a lot of shadowy latitude and conflicted ideas to work with. When we talk about Texas media, the last time McCartney pulled what he's pulling with Greta Thunberg was with Midori Goto in the early 90s. He put Midori on the cover of Texas Queer magazine, which meant that she was weaponized by the Lenin faction to position a conflict of aims. I was studying Japanese feminism because I recognized that she was a trophy Japanese fetch. And as Gabriel put it when he saw his first wife, Jill, in the dance floor, she was the prettiest girl in the room, so it was very simple. She was the most prominent musical East-West symbol, similar to John Lennon's tastes. So it was very simple who to reach out to with an appeal about Mount Desert Island and get help from Mount Desert Island. And she took the side of Leslie Katz and convinced Texas Queer to take the side of Leslie Katz, which was to sell McCartney's justification for Mount Desert Island as a experimental theme park, or scared straight program. When I spoke to somebody from Congress about it, he didn't care to pursue it, but he said it was an illegal program. The way McCartney slithers out of that is, well, they don't care to pursue it, for one thing. For another, it's not as illegal as what Curry says it was. So it's like if you want to settle for a lesser allegation, we'll admit that it was illegal. But the problem is that the person from the Gurdjieff Society who lured me there was talking about a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood before AIDS happened, when he was up at the Tyler Art School with people who I knew who were involved in the gang, the gutter snipes that included Wattmaker. The letters about whom confirm gave me the nerve agent through a girl who looks like a cover of the woman on Robert Fripp's 1979 record, Under Heavy Manners. In fact, pictures have circulated of Greta that look a good deal like Gail Burston. So, Attenborough and Wattmaker are still hot on the chase. Well, Zell was working for the Jackson Immunogenetic Laboratories and circulating his statements of his admiration for Joseph Goebbels. Midori Goto, however, claimed that he was defending Leslie Katz, a Jewish girl, which carries over into American media's claim that Zelensky couldn't possibly be a Nazi because he's Jewish. Well, how could Joseph Goebbels be defending Leslie Katz if she's Jewish? By the same logic of Texas Queer and Midori Goto, or I should say by the same ill logic of Paul McCartney, the walrus, because what he says goes. You know, they had this letter to Leslie where I accused her of being insightful towards women when they have the right to say no. And I was accused of the very opposite of what I said. I was accused of threatening to rape her because I said she had the right to leave me and shouldn't be making it sound like I was pathetic for not forcing myself on her, which is what she did. She said things like, why should you get another chance? And her attorney said, you blew it. And another attorney of hers said it wouldn't have been rape. And I reacted against that. And I thought maybe Midori Goto would help me. And they came up with this idea of the black belt in feminism, where she will test it by having her go off with the assassins. And you Ayn Rand yourself before Trump Almighty. And if you flinch, we'll call it evidence of hiding, defiant trespass. If you pick a penny off the sidewalk, we'll call it theft, and we'll rape your deaf advocate, an Asian woman too from Korea. And if you cry, we'll say that you're +1 DAG who should be injected with HIV. And this is what Midori did with Texas Queer. 4 of the people who started AIDS. And in order to make that work, they had to garble what my letter to Leslie Katz said. And now they're saying they have the right to hawk it at Sotheby's after they've already told me. I'm choking on acid reflux from Parkinson's disease, which is the #1 way that people with Parkinson's die. So, the last time this happened, it was, Rosa used to say, well, I'm not them, I'm not them. You could count on Greta to say, I'm not them, I'm not them. But where's the person who's going to step forward and defend the person who's telling the truth? I don't know. I'm just telling the truth. And they were saying, well, you want to be like John Lennon, you should have to die of AIDS. And they come up with this story about me. They compared the black man's wanting to give Parkinson's to a white, to my accepting the challenge of a woman from India who was pretty, to go out with her. This makes sense to their minds. Makes sense to the spinner beanies. It doesn't make sense at all to torture somebody and murder them over a one-night stand. There's no similarity to those things at all. And yet in their minds, these things congruent, they equate. And it's one of the contributions that Midori Goto made to the situation was to say, he's crying, he wants the genetic annihilation of the black man because I prefer Obama. I didn't ever say anything like that. I said the same thing to Midori Goto I said to Leslie Katz. If that's your druthers, that's fine, but would you leave me alone, please? And they refused. The opposite of what they did. Their objective had nothing to do with choosing someone else. Their objective was to fry the neuroplasm that Altenmaker implanted in the person they tortured and said, we are chosen for an Aztec crucible. And the people were Sherrill and Karl. And they scrambled the letters in Karl to get Lark. And Jimmy's form of Leslie Katz coitus was large tongues and aspic. And, they put bad shit in my mouth or something. Came up on my lip right before they booted the grannies for the COVID Burgermeister. And this is that freak show from Britain. Yeah, it is. There's no other explanation for it. And when you go into it, they say, oh, well, the whole thing is revenge for Lenin. Well, I could see the way the Japanese would laugh when they got Texas queers to support the people who started AIDS with a story about John Lennon, hatched in invisible ink. But it's not true. The whole thing is a double fantasy. Lennon was spirited away. He didn't even get killed. He pulled a Houdini. I have seen, they said only 2 people would know what we did, me and you. Well, I'm the other person who knows what they did. And that's the bottom line is that the story that they told in Invisible Ink isn't valid anyway. because I knew nothing about it. And they used invisible ink to develop it and say, oh, behold, the promised clock. Look at the story that we saw. And don't you like that story better than your stupid John Kennedy? Sure you do. Sure you do.